Luno, the fastest, easiest way to buy Bitcoin. If you're just getting into crypto, it's the perfect place to start.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Layah show. Of course, it is powered by Heilpern Plus Capital, the VC company. So, Matthew, welcome to the show. How are you?
Pleased to be here today, Layah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. I'm really excited to jump in. I have 1,000,001 questions, but before we do, I just want to let everybody know that this is sponsored by BlockFi, and you can actually get up to $250 when you sign up. I think you can get around 6% interest, which is really cool. So there's a link somewhere for you. So Matthew, you are the CEO of Sino Global Capital. For those that don't know, just give us a brief intro as to what you guys do.
Sure. So we invest as strategic investors in the best blockchain projects all around the world. And the reason it's a strategic check is we help our portfolio companies here in mainland China, which certainly, as we've seen in the last week or so, is arguably the most important market in crypto. And certainly among the major markets, is the most esoteric and really impenetrable for international projects. So basically, we touch four bases: East, West, finance, and technology, and we're pretty good across those four bases. And we invest in crypto, but as more with a traditional VC approach, namely that we find people that we think are fucking awesome, that we want to hang out with for the long term, and we support them here in China. So we look for the best people around the world, people like FTT and Serum and Solana, people like Sam Bankman-Fried and Anatoly from Solana, and we support them day in, day out here with boots on the ground in China.
I think with everything that's going on with China and over the last 2 weeks, it's such a fascinating place to be based because it's really hard to understand exactly what is going on and just how much the market is being affected. So I want to go through all of it. I really don't fully have a hold on the situation. So given you're there, just to start with the absolute basics, what are the attitudes like towards crypto?
So I think it's difficult to answer questions like that because really you have so many different constituencies. So when you say attitudes towards crypto, you have a small number of people that are engaging with crypto in a sophisticated institutional way. You have a vast swath of people that are engaging in a retail way. You have regulators. You have all kinds of different people with all kinds of different views. So I think it's kind of tough to answer in that way. The best way really to answer it is that, I mean, how would you answer that for the US? You have some people who think it's bullshit. You have some people who think it's the greatest thing ever and they're tweeting about Doge or whatever. You have some people that are hot and cold like Elon. You got all kinds of people. So it's really similar in that respect, I would say.
But if I look to India, for example, or Nigeria, I could sort of say a clean, okay, well, their governments are hostile towards it, and that's really obvious. But China, it's really hard to understand what's going on. There's a lot of flip-flopping.
Sure. So,
go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. So if you narrow the question to the Chinese government, then that's easier to answer. So I would answer thusly. So the Chinese government views blockchain as a strategic technology, much in the way that they do technologies such as AI and 5G. They view it as enormously important. And that's why, for example, they've been working on their Shuzi, their digital currency, for years now. And it's finally about to come to fruition. So that's blockchain, though. And as we know, blockchain is for sure not the same thing as crypto. That's more distributed ledger type things, not pure crypto, right? So conversely, I think that they're kind of wary and not super comfortable with crypto because it engages and overlaps with strategic technology blockchain in many ways. They don't quite want to just shut it down entirely, but they're kind of wary of it. And I think that wariness explains hot and cold behavior in some ways. But stepping back from that, I think that one reason that it's quite difficult to interpret, there are several reasons, but one reason quite difficult to interpret Chinese government pronouncements is that you need a lot of contextual knowledge. And so part of that contextual knowledge that I think is super important in understanding the Chinese government action with respect to crypto is you need to know where the third rails are. The third rail is that electric rail that you can't touch. So the Chinese government, with respect to crypto, the first third rail is that they're enormously sensitive to anything that interacts with the currency control regime. As most people probably know, the renminbi is not a free-floating currency like the United States dollar. It's a strictly controlled currency. And so anything that could potentially be an end around or weaken the currency control regime, that's a third rail. They're enormously sensitive to that. So that's the first one. The second one then is anything. So the first two are related. The second one then is fiat on and off ramp and anything related to AML and tax evasion. And then the third thing I would say is anything related to excessive retail speculation. And so it's important to understand that there are a lot of, even before crypto and even now, but not related to crypto, there's a lot of MLM and Ponzi type financial schemes here in China called Zijinpan. And so these things can really metastasize overnight, especially on a regional basis. And so what you can have is you can have tens of thousands of people in some kind of random city that have all invested in a shitcoin. If you're lucky, maybe there's some actual value there, but probably there's not. So probably they're investing in some Ponzi coin, and it may be very regional. And then when it collapses, you can suddenly have thousands or even tens of thousands of very pissed off people in a specific place that are almost kind of like mobilizing and potentially even protesting. And so the government is enormously sensitive to this kind of potential retail investor unrest. So I think when you interpret Chinese government pronouncements, one reason it's so difficult is you have to understand what is actually super important to them and then kind of start on that basis.
I think so. You just to go back a second, you mentioned fiat on and off ramps. Is it difficult for a retail investor to actually buy Bitcoin out there?
So I would say it like this. There's enormous creativity in finding ways to get done what you want to get done. So people have, by observation, there's an almost endlessly creative solution space that people have in order to get in and out. But it's something that's enormously sensitive. Frankly, this is a topic that we know a lot less about because we don't go anywhere near there. I've literally never gone from fiat in or out to crypto ever, not even once.
Why not?
Because this is something that's very sensitive, and so I like to sleep very peacefully. So Sino has literally never done that ever. We never touched renminbi ever, not even ever. So it's an area, the point though being that it's an area that we know a little bit less about because of that. But by observation, there's enormous energy that goes into finding end arounds for this kind of thing. But it's a very at best, it's a gray area, and it's a very dangerous activity, as we saw, I guess it was about a year ago, with a famous China OG who was arrested for this type of activity. He's actually a Bitfinex shareholder. And these things definitely happen from time to time. It's not something you want to be involved with, but people spend a lot of energy on this, and they for sure do find ways to do it, for sure. But it's no change that that's a sensitive activity. That's something that has been the case for quite a long period of time.
Okay, so would you then say operating in China in this industry is difficult? Because if we compare it to the UK where I'm based right now, it's super easy. It's so easy to buy Bitcoin. Everything is so, there's no threat or any concern or anything like that.
I think that it kind of depends what you're looking to do. So certainly, if you already have money in crypto, you are currently free to trade crypto. If you already have money in the crypto system, so to speak, as long as you're compliant with AML and tax and such. And so, ultimately it depends what you're looking to do. It's definitely a much more complicated landscape, even for native Chinese or people that are fully expert in the Chinese market. And that's for sure for many reasons. One reason is that in the West, we have very much a black and white legal landscape, which is another reason why it's difficult for people to understand what's going on in China. In the UK or in the United States, it's kind of like you have 30% of things that are definitely illegal, and then you have 68% of things that are definitely illegal, and then you have a gray area that's kind of like 2%. In China, it's more like you have 15% of things that are definitely illegal and 40% of things that are definitely legal, and then you have a huge gray area. So that's a very different framework to operate in, to have an enormous gray area, rather than a very black and white landscape. That's another reason it's super difficult for people to understand what's going on in China, because you have kind of what's on paper. In the West, I think that the overlap between what's on paper and what's actually taking place on the ground is enormous. It's a huge overlap. In China, there's a substantially the overlap is substantially less. You definitely can't understand the landscape by just looking at what's on paper. That will definitely get you very confused very quickly. So you have to have an understanding of two things. Number one, what's on paper. Number two, the facts on the ground. And then the third thing, you also need to understand how those two interact and how that might change over time. So it's definitely, in a way, more nuanced.
Yeah, and I think the confusion comes in because every single bull market, and we've seen over the last few weeks, there's always news coming out of China that they've banned this or they've stopped that. So, and then also, actually, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, I made a video because China actually gave the green light on something Bitcoin related. So then that's a bit of a flip flop there. So how can the same news keep coming out? I think that's kind of what I don't understand. Are they just reinforcing a previous hostility from 2017, for example?
So I would phrase it like this. One way the Chinese government manages financial markets, and including crypto, is that they use signaling as a way to tamp down on excessive speculative forces, for example. So as the market goes through a bull and bear cycles, in a bull cycle, we can expect that the Chinese government at some point is likely to signal that things are getting a little too frothy. So in that sense, that's something that would be a repeated action across rather many years. So that's the first thing.
But just on that point, nothing is actually changing. It's merely a signal.
Well, I think that is I think that's too simple a view. In
Okay.
2017, it's definitely true that there was a crackdown on ICO related
Yeah.
activities. It's also definitely true that there were counter responses, even to the point of small things such as people know that they can't talk freely probably about ICOs on WeChat, so they start using little codes like IC0 or whatever was one that was very
Understood.
common.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that first, that people are enormously creative at moving around what the central government based in Beijing may want at any given time. And that can reveal itself in several aspects. That can reveal itself in the fact that sometimes there's a disconnect between the central government and regional or local governments, number one. And number two, that there's, again, these creative solutions to moving around government policy imperatives. I'm trying to remember the expression off the top of my head, but it's something like the mountains are high and the emperor is far away, something like that. But the point is that what the central government based in Beijing wants to get done is not always what will ultimately happen. There's also the expression "shang you zhengse, sha you duise," which basically means that there are measures and then there are countermeasures. So in Beijing, they might want one thing, and then locally they might find a way to get done what they want to get done. So there's
Understood.
a lot of
Okay.
complicated nuances.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I really appreciate you breaking that down. It is so difficult to fully understand what is going on. Because like you said, what happens in practice isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily reflect what's happening on paper.
Sure.
But this week there was apparently in the news, it said, a crackdown on Bitcoin miners in Beijing. So before we get into that, how correct is that?
So I think that's I would not phrase it that way.
Okay.
I would phrase it as this. So there was a routine policy meeting related to financial stability, not specifically Bitcoin, not specifically crypto, but overall financial stability, a routine meeting. And as part of that meeting, there was a line item which was related specifically to crypto, including Bitcoin mining.
Okay.
So I think, first of all, it's important to understand that this is not a story specifically about crypto. It's a story about how the Chinese government doesn't like excessive financial speculation, especially retail. Now, it is true that that was a meeting at the vice premier level, and the vice premier is the point person for economic policy. So it is true that it's very serious in that regard. But I would view it as this is an initial indication that the government is very closely studying these issues and is evaluating possible policies that could be implemented. That's quite different than overnight Bitcoin mining is banned, something like that.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of open questions, such as is this something that would be implemented at the national level? Is this something that would be implemented at the provincial level? What would be the possible scope? For example, are we talking about Bitcoin mining, or are we talking about unauthorized Bitcoin mining? Because that's two extremely different things. So there are a lot of open questions, and I think as a result, it's very important to use one's contextual knowledge of China and evaluate a range of possibilities and try to put a probability on those. The fact is that when the Chinese government moves, it frequently starts as high-level, opaque policy pronouncements, which are very difficult to interpret. That's kind of where we are now. And then as time goes on, you can start to put details around those. So therefore, I think a credible analysis would say that there's a wide range of potential outcomes, and we're trying to put probabilities on those. It's much less, or maybe even not credible, if we start to see things saying Bitcoin mining banned, Bitcoin in China is over, something like that doesn't make any sense to me. So I would kind of suggest that that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I definitely have a better grip now on the situation of understanding how it works. But there are always these concerns that Bitcoin mining is centralized in China. Before we get into what that could mean, I just wanted to know where you stand on that.
Well, so I think is the question, am I concerned that the country of China, which is also a region, am I concerned that there's so much mining hash rate in China? Not
are you
really,
concerned?
no.
Not are you concerned, but do you think that there is? Like, a lot of people say that it's centralized, and then they say they're not, that actually for whatever reason that's not actually a problem. And like you said,
It's a true statement that there's a lot of hash rate in China. That's definitely a true statement, especially in Sichuan and Xinjiang, those two provinces. There's enormous hash rate. I mean, that's a factual statement. Am I worried about that? Not really. I think people make the assumption that these are actors that are all kind of on the same page and could act like a cartel. That's a risk factor in some way, and I'm skeptical that it could ever work that way in practice. You have a lot of disparate actors with varied incentives. I think that it would be quite difficult to get them all on the same page to act not only together, but in a way that is potentially against their own economic incentives. I'm quite skeptical of these narratives. But yeah, sure, it's a factual statement that there's huge hash rate in China. That's true.
Also, you mentioned Sichuan. So Sichuan is one of the areas where there's a lot of renewable energy. So people are mining there just because, when there's a high supply, obviously the prices for mining is lower. So I want to talk about energy, everything that's been going on at the moment. Of course, Elon Musk did that whole flip-flop. 1 minute Tesla are accepting Bitcoin, the next minute they're not accepting Bitcoin. Just
not my favorite thing.
Yeah, go on. Why? What happened there for you?
Yeah, I think, look, crypto is a unique space, right? I mean, I myself shitpost on Twitter.
Yeah.
Probably somewhat famously, I like to shitpost. But I also try to be responsible about the way I do it. And so and I think there's a way to do things in a fun way.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do things in an irresponsible way. And so even a crypto person like myself is concerned about that. And to have Elon fucking Musk, who's second richest person in the world as of today, to be fundamentally, in my view, irresponsible, I think it's incredibly disappointing. I think that he's LARPing much of the time. I mean, I do think he's interested in crypto. He thinks it's fun, and he's probably interested in it for legitimate reasons as well. Mm-hmm. But look, he can't make jokes about buying Tesla at 420 anymore. So he's finding a different way to LARP, and I think it sucks, honestly. I think it's bullshit. I think it's it would be irresponsible even for someone like me and for the second richest person in the world to be acting like that. I think it's bullshit, basically.
Yeah, I can really understand the frustration of people in the community, especially when, you know, people try so hard, for example, like Nick Carter, to try and really explain how Bitcoin can use renewable energy and how it's actually a net positive. I think Satoshi, him or her or themselves, put it.
I think, sorry to interrupt. I think we got to be
go
a
for it.
little careful too, because I think that it's very, I mean, we have our own vested interests, right? So many of us have most of our net worth in crypto, and we're working in crypto full time. But I think you have to be intellectually honest also. And I don't claim to be a mining expert. There are many other people who are more understanding of mining than I am. Yeah. That's not a primary focus at Sino. However, I think that we should be. Let me phrase it this way. My suggestion is that we need to be intellectually honest and not act like we're a Bitcoin lobbying firm trying to push a narrative. So I think we need to be super careful about engaging with the Bitcoin as something environmentally friendly narrative in a way that sticks to the facts and is intellectually honest. Now, I am not a foremost mining expert by any stretch. I'm a China-focused person, but not with a specific mining competency. But my observation for sure is that some of these narratives feel more like big Bitcoin lobbying than something that is intellectually honest. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, because I think, you know, saying that Bitcoin is green energy or Bitcoin is green is definitely a stretch, you know, like everything uses energy. I think the point that people have to stress is that, well, why don't we compare it to what we currently have now and sort of go from there and understand whether it's better, whether it's worth it, whether it is greener, not green, but greener. I think maybe that's like a key point.
I fully support that. I fully support nuanced discussions about different kinds of trade-offs. I think that's something that's super important. What I don't like is pushing at a story is where I think it's helpful for, even as someone who is full-time crypto and has a lot at stake, along with the rest of us, right? I don't think it's the right thing. I don't think it's helpful for anyone to push a story and not engage with things in an intellectually honest way. That's my suggestion.
And I think nuance is just impossible over Twitter. You know, if that's anything that I've learned, it is. Twitter is not made for debate. I can debate that for ages.
Yeah. I mean, look, obviously, I think we all know that I love Twitter probably way too much. But I definitely agree with that. It's very, very difficult to have nuance on Twitter, look, obviously, right? But you can also have things that are clearly like a bullshit way of going about your business, where it's just, you're just talking nonsense and you're just, lobbying or
shitposting in a bad way. In a bad way.
The definition of shitposting. Shitposting to me, I think of as, fun. But so I don't really mind shitposting. But then when people are pushing simplistic, almost even intellectually dishonest narratives, that's different. Shitposting, I think of as just like, maybe that's not what people mean when they say that, but to me, I think of it as like fun talking trash type thing. To me, that's okay. But what's not okay is trying to twist the reality of our industry.
Yeah, I understand, and I think talking about intellectual honesty is so important. And that nuance is really important. But off the back of all of this, the mighty Bitcoin Council came about. So that was all very exciting. This caused a lot of backlash, and it was really polarizing. So before I give my views, what are your views on a Bitcoin Council put together by two billionaires?
I'm not super. I don't have strong feelings on this one. I'm not super opposed to it. I mean, I think in general, I'm someone that gets very worked up about monopoly power and things like that. But at the same time, I'm not opposed to different stakeholders working together if they are truly trying to make improvements and be pro-social. I don't necessarily have strong feelings on it at this time. I think it comes down to intent, and I think that's an open question.
But I think,
but then again, I'm not like I'm more of candidly, I'm more of a post-Ethereum DeFi kind of guy. I'm not really like the old school Austrian economics libertarian type. If I were, I would probably be furious about Bitcoin Mining Council, but that's not really me.
Understood. I think it's the idea of having this trustless network where there's no centralized power and we all have one incentive, which is basically make money, pay back those mining fees, those energy costs. So I can fully understand the frustration. I mean, for me personally, I wouldn't say a diehard libertarian, but I really, my heart really feels the pull towards not having centralized power. But that's interesting though. So were you that libertarian, and then you moved more towards
I was
Ethereum?
When I was like 19.
Okay. Usually it's the other way around. Usually when you're younger. Sorry, go on.
I went through an Ayn Randian phase. I did. I read every single one of Ayn Rand's books when I was like 17, 18, 19. I definitely went through that phase at one point.
But usually it's when you're younger. So when I was about 16,
well, usually
I was
they
a
say
socialist.
You get more conservative when you get older, but I'm not sure conservative is the same thing as libertarian. And I certainly would argue that it's not. I do think that to some extent, libertarian is, I mean, a lot of people go through a libertarian phase in their late teens and early 20s, don't they? When they
other way around.
haven't had a job yet.
No way. I totally disagree with you. I think socialism when you're young, socialist in your 20s, when nobody's working and they're not paying their own bills, they're happy for socialism. When you start making your own money and you're paying your own bills and you're working hard to pay those bills, you then lean a bit more to libertarianism, I would say.
Could be. You're in the UK though, right? You guys are still pretty normal. Well, you got Brexit, but the United States has taken a weird lurch over my lifetime. So my politics have stayed basically the same, but I went from I went from maybe Republican voter to a Biden type guy, even though my politics have basically stayed the same. But I can see from your facial expression, we're probably not going to find a lot of common ground here.
No, I don't like Biden. If I could fit in really nicely in America, it would be somewhere in Texas or Florida. That's me.
Jesus Christ, are you sure?
Oh, I'm totally sure. I think I can see it.
So you go to Miami?
I can't because I can't.
No,
I can't
know,
because
where in Florida or Texas would you go? Would you go to Miami or Austin, or would you go like completely nuts and go to like the Florida Panhandle?
I don't know what that is, but Miami.
That's where it gets really weird.
Oh, really? What happens there?
I think that's where it's more But Miami is a modern city, right?
Yeah,
So you
understood.
can. I think I also would love Miami in many ways, and Austin. We have our DGen fund manager lives in Miami. We have an internal DGen fund run by
Okay.
a kid, fucking brilliant kid. He's still
How
a
old
kid,
is he?
basically.
What's a kid? How old is he?
I think he's 22.
Damn, that is
But
young.
he's been in DeFi for like 3 years now, and he's been in crypto for like 5 years, and he's an absolute fucking stud. Anyway, he lives in Miami, so I have to
love
visit
that.
him.
No, I love
Yeah.
that. I think the whole like this is why I love
I
this
don't
industry
care
so
about
much.
I don't care about age or pedigree or any of this shit. I don't give a fuck. We turn down Harvard summa cum laude grads all the time. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. I just care about hustle and industry knowledge and ability to get cool shit done. So I would hire a 62-year-old or a 22-year-old or a 17-year-old, or I don't give a fuck. But yeah, we have a kid that manages our internal DGen fund, and he does an absolutely fucking fantastic job. He's just a complete stud. So
So
he's
the question
from
is,
Miami.
where did you find him? Where did you find him?
He cold called us, as I recall.
Oh, really?
He fucking slid in my Twitter DMs.
There you go.
And we on the regular interview hundreds of people to find one guy or girl, and so he came on as an intern, and he's just a fucking animal. So we hired him, and now he manages money. And in fact, he managed money before he even graduated university. So he still had some classes left. It was his last semester. And so he was sitting in fucking class managing money. Well, as ignoring the professor probably. And he's just absolute stud.
Yeah, I think the entire world is changing. Something that I always say is that university eventually will become redundant for most subjects. And for some reason that upsets a lot of people, but it is what it is. And I think that he messaged you. He messaged you on Twitter. Twitter is where it's at when it comes to networking. And I love it. A lot of people get offended when I say that university is something of the past for most degrees. I mean, I regret my degree. I did a journalism degree. Worked as a journalist. Didn't like it. Now I do more informal journalism. I guess you could call this journalism.
I think journalism is fucking cool. Journalism is
depends how you do it.
But in another lifetime, I could totally be an investigative journalist. I think journalism is fucking awesome.
Yeah, when you do it for yourself, it is. Of course it is. I love look, like I the reason why I did the show today with you is because I didn't understand what's going on in China. I want to understand what's going on in China. I speak to somebody on the ground. Like that's journalism, right? So I love that, but not when you work for a big organization.
Well, the industry is terrible.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So that's two different things. Actually having a job in journalism sounds honestly terrible.
It was.
But the actual work of being an investigative journalism sounds just fucking awesome.
I have a story for you. So I used to work for, do you know CGTN? You must know them, China's global TV network.
I do know CGTN.
Yeah.
That's
I used to work
the
for them.
global arm of CCTV.
Yes, I used to work for them. And
so
when
this
I worked
is China State Television Global Division. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I worked basically directly for them. And I was based out in Paris. And I was sort of providing the European perspective as to what's going on. Anyway, there was a Huawei 5G conference. And I was working there, and I had to.
I may not be able to comment on this,
You don't have to comment. Honestly, I'm not really good.
I may just listen, and that's it.
Yeah. It's chill. Okay, so I was at the conference. It was a Huawei 5G conference, and I was basically putting together a news package, multiple different types of creative pieces for CGTN, and I was under strict instructions about certain things that I couldn't do. So I ask a lot of questions because I just want to understand. I might ask the same question several times. I just really want to understand something. So for me, and I'm very direct in the way that I speak. So for me, I just wanted to know from this guy that I was interviewing. So what are your comments about America, for example, blacklisting Huawei and, you know, Europe potentially doing the same thing? I wasn't allowed to ask that. I wasn't allowed.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
And because I wasn't based in China, I was based in Europe, it was really hard to wrap my head around the fact that I'm producing a news story and I'm not allowed to ask a really good, simple, obvious question. So, you know, you're talking about 5G, you're talking about Huawei today. There are concerns that Europe might follow America. How do you feel about that? I wasn't allowed.
But I'm not convinced that's so different. This is not a defense of CGTN, by the way. It's a critique of American media is what it is. So I want to be clear on that point. I'm not convinced that's so different than Fox News or Sinclair, which is a network of news stations in the United States. I'm not convinced it's totally different from that.
Well, I mean, I don't think that I would be in trouble if I asked those questions in America. And when I was told to do it,
you lose your job, you know, basically. You could lose your job, I think.
I can't comment on that because I don't know. But what I do know is that I was told to make a fluff piece, not a serious news piece. That's what I was told.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not convinced that's different from Fox News or Sinclair, is my point.
Maybe. I don't know, but I don't know, but it was interesting. And then at the conference as well, when I interviewed the guy, there was just so much security watching the interview happen all at once. I can't remember.
The guy was a Huawei top executive, or?
Yeah, no government official, anything like that, just somebody at Huawei. And yeah, all eyes while the interview was happening. And I was like, wow, it's strange. It was a really weird experience. But since you at Sino Global Capital, since you guys specialize in finding those hidden gems, I think that's what I read on your website. You call them hidden gems.
Well, we also invest in super high profile companies and projects like FTT and Solana and Serum. But I kind of view the real job or the real talent of a VC is finding talent and opportunities in unexpected places. So for sure we do both. But maybe I guess I like underdogs, so my heart is maybe in the gems. Maybe you could think of it that way. Maybe.
Can you tell us any hidden gems?
I like underdogs and outsiders.
Like who?
Oh, well, I mean, just like a general comment, you know.
Okay. So you're obviously interested. Go on, Matty, go on. No, you go for it. Go for it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's more fun to find some random fucking genius in fucking Lisbon than it is to find a third generation Stanford grad backed by Sequoia. Isn't it like more fun? I think it's more fun. You know? I mean, look, we do both, you know. But my heart, I'm more passionate about finding the people that fail pattern matching, but they're fucking awesome. You know, VCs have their pattern matching, right? And so they look for, a small, certainly Silicon Valley VCs would rather see a Stanford dropout than the best student in the last 10 years at Purdue, you know? So I'd rather look for people that fail traditional pattern matching tests, but they're fucking awesome, and I'd rather invest in them. And then I have 1.4 billion people I can introduce them to, and we can try to make some things happen. So we do both, but I know where my heart is.
And
One
just
is more
finally,
rewarding.
no, I get that. I get one is far more rewarding. But just finally, I'm interested to hear why you're excited about Solana.
So I think that it's about design space, and so we also are enormously bullish on Ethereum. Ethereum is fucking amazing. Vitalik is a goddamn legend. So Ethereum right now is kind of like the default in many ways for DeFi, right? It's your everyday car, and it's a fucking great car. Would be super comfortable recommending this car to anyone. So now, if this is your everyday car, I don't know, what's a good everyday car? I don't know, a fucking Volvo, I don't know. So if this is your Volvo, which is a safe car, it's a dependable car, it's a good everyday car, super comfortable recommending it, but there's a limited space of things you can do with a Volvo. So Solana, on the other hand, is like your weekend car, and it's a goddamn fucking Ferrari. This is your performance car. So a performance car opens up a whole vast design space, by which I mean all sorts of new applications, all sorts of new things that you can do. So Solana has a fundamentally different transaction cost and transaction speed. It's 1 or 2 orders of magnitude faster and cheaper to be using the Solana Ferrari versus the Ethereum Volvo, which I also again fucking love because it's a great car. So especially Solana, I think, will be super well suited for fintech, decentralized fintech applications that have high performance needs, which is why you see jump trading. I'm not sure how widely known jump trading is because it's elite in the same sense as Goldman Sachs, but they're not public facing. So many people don't know what jump trading is. But basically for TradFi, jump trading is one of the very most elite trading firms in the world, on the caliber as Jane Street. If you probably haven't heard of Jane Street either, because again, not public facing, they just trade their own capital and they have no need for people to know who they are. But that's where Sam Bankman-Fried came from. He went from MIT to Jane Street to Alameda and FTX. So anyway, the point is that that's why jump trading, which is now spending an enormous amount of time on DeFi, they have 2 partners that manage the firm. And one of the 2 partners is personally managing DeFi efforts. And they have, at this point, dozens of people focused on DeFi. And they are very focused on Solana and Serum because of its unique suitability for DeFi, for high performance DeFi. In fact, they're launching a new project soon. It's called Pith, which is being spun out of jump trading. It's an Oracle related project. But anyway, the point is that Solana opens up, and Serum opens up a whole new design space because that kind of transaction speed and cost is so fundamentally important in finance. So I think we will also have other interesting applications come out of this new vast design space. That's only the first one. And they may be very unrelated to DeFi. In fact, I believe we will see people experimenting with some of these ideas that were premature and ultimately disastrous in 2017. A lot of times timing is so important. So I believe now that we have Solana, people will revisit ideas such as decentralized social networks, decentralized, Twitter, things like that. And they might have a much higher chance of success versus in 2017 when we got these projects. We basically were like, this is ridiculous. This this is a stupid idea. But now they might actually make sense. So basically, it's about that design space, and it's about if you have something that's 10,000 times faster and 10,000 times cheaper, all of a sudden you can do so many cool things. And I don't think anyone knows what some of these things will be yet, but there's definitely going to be amazing creativity coming out of this new design space. So we're even though we are sitting on an enormous stack of Ethereum and are hugely bullish on Ethereum, we're just so excited about Solana and Serum.
Yeah, I think we're at a stage now where you're absolutely right. It's all about timing. I think politically, we've seen we've had a lot of hostility towards our space online, which kind of creates the need and pushes the need more for these decentralized applications, Web3, and all of it. So no, I'm totally with you. I think it's really exciting. I hold some soul. That's why I asked you. So yeah, I'm excited.
I guess you're gonna make it. GMI.
I hope I make it. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Matthew, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I almost forgot. I promised I would give a shout out to my friends, the lunatics at Cope, which is a Sino project, and they have one of the most intense, fucking amazing communities, and I love them so much. And so I promised I would give a shout out to the Cope Ape Army, my lunatic friends at Cope. I promised I would do that. So thank you.
There you go. No, that's absolutely fine. Matthew, I want to thank you so much.
Wait, hold on, Layah, where's your Cope Ape?
I don't have any.
Well, you have to have a Cope Ape.
I don't know what that is. What's a Cope Ape?
So Cope is a Solana-based project.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's a Sino portfolio company. And so we really love the community, and we thought a fun thing would be for the big Cope holders, for every one of them, we adopted an actual fucking ape.
You adopted an ape?
Yeah, we adopted like 10, 12 apes. They're in Rwanda.
Okay. Wow.
So you should get an ape. That's my point. We adopted like real apes. They're in Rwanda being taken care of by an environmental conservation group. So it's just something for you to think about.
I will think about it. Thank you for sharing. That's actually really interesting. I'll have to find out more information on that. But wait, Matthew, before we go, where can people find you? Where can people follow you and see what you're up to?
So the easiest ways to find me are on either Twitter or WeChat.
Twitter or WeChat.
So for my Twitter is Matty Sino, and the Sino Global Twitter, I guess it's Sino Global Cap, CAP. That's the easiest way to find me.
There you go. I thank you so much. It's been really good. No, honestly, I've been wanting to learn more and understand more about what's going on where you are. So yeah, I really appreciate you speaking on it, and I enjoyed how you spoke around the subject. I thought that was entertaining. So
thanks very
I really
much.
appreciate it.
I enjoyed it as well. Thanks.
Absolutely. So everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.